Hey traders, this is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Wednesday, November 18th. So a little bit of a pullback today, especially at the end of the day. I think maybe a little bit of a combination of factors today. If you're looking for a reason for why we pull back at the end of the day, I think the market is really sensitive to this New York City data that comes out. They're announcing that they announced that they closed schools. Also, we're seeing that the rates are ticking up. In terms of cases and so on and so forth with COVID related. But so these are obviously negatives. Nobody wants these cases to go higher. Nobody wants hospitalizations. Nobody wants people to, nobody wants to see people sick. And the politicians are going to kind of react to this stuff. But that's a whole nother story. So for now, we talked about this a little bit in terms of in the member Q&A today, and I'll go through some of the thoughts that I mentioned today at 1 o'clock. We did the Q&A session today, was about 40 minutes, but I think that the market is kind of priced to perfection, right? Was one of the reasons too that we moved down. It could have been the COVID data from New York City, or it could have been just about anything. I think that there's a little bit of complacency in the market, right? People really felt like getting confident that nothing could kind of bring this market down to some extent in regards to the positioning and the sentiment that we're seeing on the tape. So if we look at some of this data, and first of all, where do we finish for the day? All in all, not that bad, I don't think. And I'll go over some levels to watch, but SPY down 1.2%. The diamonds finished down 1.2% as well. Small caps down a little bit more, and the Qs fared a little bit better. Of course, you could see this, across names. For example, it kind of seems like you can position a little bit for this type of information, like those New York numbers. It's the second day in a row, by the way, that we saw a little bit of a pullback. When they announced that the New York numbers were going up, they there was a little bit of a down move and then back up once they announced that they weren't going to close schools. But this was a little bit more impactful today. So, but yeah, you can kind of look, you can position for this a little bit if you think that we're going to get similar headlines tomorrow, because these headlines seem to come out around 2 or 2:30. But you take, for example, Zoom Video, right? These are the stocks that are really going to move on these types of things, right? Zoom, as soon as that information came out, right around 2:15, Zoom goes up. Peloton, I think, went up too. All the really pure play, stay at home type names. I played a little bit of Teladoc on that. Docu is another one too. All types of similar moves. So that's how you can kind of tell that that's what this is about for now. But if we go back to the S&P, there's some really nice significant levels. I'm trying to word this correctly, but on the 5-minute, we did go down and take out this version point of control, right? I had a couple questions on Twitter about what are you talking about? What is a version point of control? Well, again, I'll define it for you. I do this probably a couple days a week in these videos, but it is an area of where there is a lot of volume, right? A point of control is where the most volume is centered around in a given time frame, and price seems to gravitate down to them. I showed a couple examples the last couple days. The one that I showed the other day was Amazon, for example. We took out this version point of control up here from this period. Again, this line in here, where my cursor's at, is where the most volume was in this 1 week. This is in this 5-minute time frame. So this value area was for 1 day, and price did not even go through this value area at all, let alone through the point of control. So that's what leaves these version point of controls. So that was one from Amazon from the other day. There was also one for DKNG, which acted pretty valid. This is on the 1 hour time frame. right? Bang, right? So, this one, again, we don't, it's not 100% that you're going to fade from them, but a lot of times we do, right? Or a lot of times we just don't go any further, right? So that's DraftKings. Notice there's another one up there at 54.25. So if you're trading this name, I would wait for the price to get back above it to know that that price can overcome it. All right. So that's the situation there. For some of these names. So, going back to the S&P, I lost my train of thought there for a second. We did take that one out. The other thing I would watch for tomorrow is notice that we're still kind of falling here after hours, but we are into this support. We did break into the support. This is still a developing bar. So what I would want to see, in the overnight session or, come tomorrow morning is for price to get back above 3572. If we start to break through this as we are right now through this value area, this 3572 right now is not holding, then you have to watch for the next level down. And that looks like it's going to be, quite a bit down, 3523, right, which is down here. Okay, so we'll see how this develops. For now, I think that price can easily get back above 3572, and right now we're kind of in a little bit of no man's land. So, that's not that big of a move for price to get back above it. However, if it can't do it, and the longer that it stays inside value, I think the greater probability that the 80% rule plays out, right? Which means a move. Once you firmly establish yourself inside value, there's an 80% chance that you could go all the way through it, right? So that's where we're at right now, and we'll kind of see where that goes. Now, is this a really bad thing in here? No, I don't think so. And here's what we were talking about. A couple of people asked me for my view, my macro view, and a couple of people have kind of answered this. A couple of members of Tribeca Trade Group have answered this question. That yeah, there's some risks on the tape, right? This COVID stuff. This could potentially be a problem, and it's starting to be a problem, right? That they're starting to shut things down, not just in New York, but in various other cities too. So, there are some risks that are starting to actually, materialize. But if we kind of come in here and 3.3496, I mean, I do view these things just as we saw back in the beginning of the year that they are temporary. They can go on for a little bit. So we'll have to see how this kind of shakes out a bit, right? So 3496 is another level to watch on your charts. So again, you just kind of have to I think be positioned for this type of thing. I mentioned the other thing that I mentioned in the 1 o'clock Q&A session was that I was kind of like 50-50 between which way that we could go. Before this red bar fully materialized, because like I said, we really didn't start selling off till about 2 o'clock. And we stopped that session at about 140. And I said, hey, I'm kind of 50-50 on the way this market could go. We could either kind of consolidate a little bit and then take that next leg higher, or we can back and fill a little bit and retest. So right now we're leaning towards that retest. But all in all, I mean, this is not a big move. If we do come back down and retest 3504, I view it as not the end of the world. And I did make some adjustments because I said, hey, if I'm 50-50 and don't really have any big conviction, then that means that you kind of have to translate that into what you're holding in your trading account regarding more positions, less positions. Also, the other thing that I always talk about in terms of risk, if you're feeling a little bit more unsure, make sure that if you are feeling unsure about the market, then make sure that you're not holding short-term risk in the form of options, or limit them, limit the positions that you're holding and that stuff, because that'll get whipped around more than a stock position. Stock position, you can easily establish your stop price and say, hey, if it breaks this level, I'm out. You do, of course, have to click the mouse to do that, if you're using soft stops like I do. But option positions, just like today, right? We go back to the 5 minute. These things can move so fast, right? When the market wants to sell off, it does happen very quickly. In a matter of minutes, your option premium, is kind of shot in the foot. So that's the difference, a little bit between. There's many, many other differences between trading options and stock, but that they're just going to move. The prices of these options are going to move very quickly if the market changes direction as it did today. But also take a look at this break of value, retest and fail, right? And so we'll see. We'll see if this 5 minute VPOC takeout is strong enough for us to bounce. Again, the way that I would kind of play that too, I always like to kind of translate these things into trading. But we're kind of hanging out here. I see no confirmation yet that we're bouncing. But if you wanted to try a trade, what you do is you set your stop to just below this, right? And then, of course, if it takes it out, you got to get out of your trade. But you could use that as your stop price. That's 35.58. Okay, so we go through. This is the normal exercise. Once we break a level, we begin to see. Okay, well, where is the support, and what do we need to do to kind of gain back some support, which I detailed that on the 1 hour chart, right? Which again is 3570. Call it 3571. So again, that's only that's only 10 handles away for us to do that. All right, but yeah, and that would be here on the 5 minute. All right, and if not, if we break below this, then the next area down to watch is that 3523. All right, just to kind of reiterate. Trades for the day, I had to take, I do this, right, with options. I try to practice what I preach, and, Tesla worked pretty well. Oh, by the way, yeah, I didn't even get a chance to talk about Tesla. That was kind of the trade of the day. But, it's a good example, too, right? I know that sometimes people think that, when they see people talking, cheerleading about a particular trade, sometimes it doesn't work as planned, right? I talked about this Tesla trade. I went through this again in the Q&A session. If you already listened to me talk about this, you could skip ahead. But, this Tesla trade gave a couple false signals along the way. And I got, stopped out in a trade or two along the way. And I would basically call them paper cuts. Right, I'd leg into positions. I wait for some confirmation, but this particular day, right, it looked like Tesla was going to have a chance to break out of the November value area back on 11.9. It did it intraday, but again, the closing print is most important. It did not. It failed. And then it kind of went all the way back and tested the bottom of value. Now, of course, we got some news on Tesla. And sometimes this news, like I really don't think it's that important that Tesla's added to the S&P. I think it may be for you, if you really like trading this stock, it's a little bit of a detriment, actually. Why is it a detriment? Because now it gets pushed and pulled around with the S&P index, right? If people are selling S&P futures, and Tesla won't go into the index till the December quarterly rebalance. But if people are selling S&P hard, right, it's going to get moved around a little bit, right, depending on the weight that it is in the index. When it's not in the index, it is a little bit more uncorrelated. There's less of a correlation to the overall index when it's not in it versus when it is, right? It's pretty much just logic, right? Using that, right? Remember all those names when a market maker is fulfilling a big order in SPY or S&P futures, they source all the liquidity available. So they they'll be selling the underlying basket to facilitate large orders, right? And there's a mechanism too. So those 500 names move with the overall index, right? It's pretty basic stuff, but if anybody has any questions about that, they can of course ask me, but that's how it works. So anyway, let me get back on track here. So now you had a funky looking bar yesterday. It did not close outside value, And now you basically, you had a real nice move today. And it was a little bit tricky for me because the market was a little bit unstable in the first 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so. It tried to get going and it never closed in the first 15, 20 minutes here. With a full green bar, and then it pressed to the downside. That's basically where I got stopped out of some next week calls. But you have to pay attention to this stuff, right? You can't get mad and remove it from your screen. I got back in, maybe a little bit late on this one because I did get stopped out, so I wanted to make sure that this thing was going to get going again. But I ended up having a nice trade here, and I tried kind of changing my tact a little bit because sometimes you outplay yourself a little bit when you're in options. So I went back into stock. That worked pretty well, and I think that worked for the room very well too. A lot of people trade options in Tesla, and for the most part, I saw a lot of people doing that in the trade today. So real nice room, real nice trade overall. All right, so I'm still in this. I think this thing can go up to 500, and we'll see how it goes from there. PENN was a nice trade. This was one that I've been holding for a while, but again, it kind of failed a little bit at the end of the day. So if it's not going to work, it's not going to work. I've been in PENN now for, I think I put that trade on last week. I actually, you could do these types of things. If you think you're going to get a powerful move for that day, you can leg into some options. And so I started to take, profits in the options. And then at the end of the day, once it got back to the cost basis, I got out of the last PENN option trade, and I took a couple targets in the stock too. And now I just have the stock position left on about a quarter of my original position. All right, but that one worked very well. Tulio was a name that I added at the end of the day yesterday, and it might be all right, but I just decided, I got to get to the place where of risk where I want to be. Right, so I even tried to add that. Where's my comments on? Oh, yeah, I must have put it in the regular group chat. But yeah, I basically just wanted to get to the level that I wanted to get, in terms of overall risk that I'm exposed to in the market. All right, those are things that these are the little adjustments that I think, if we do move a little bit lower, right, it won't hurt me so bad, and I'll be ready to kind of pounce on the next move. It's very important, I think, to make those adjustments. But again, that's what I do. And of course, everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. What else did we see? Again, I tried to really pass up a couple of things on the tape today because, I just thought that we were kind of, like I said, about 50-50 for what direction. My conviction was. So we saw a couple other things we saw, again, a lot of Tesla calls on the tape. We saw a few other things like Snap and some pins calls early on. Nikolai, which some people played, like that was one I skipped. Right. Talked about that. We saw also some two other names. Right. So I mentioned DKNG. But I did mention that thing hit a virgin point of control, and that's not a place for me to go ahead and add a trade. So, I avoided that one because once we saw the calls, the move was already taking place, and also we saw a lot of calls in this SPCE, the Virgin Galactic. I like to call it Space Cadets, but same thing here, right? And you might have a trade for tomorrow. It back tested top of value. But what I didn't like is that this thing is pushing into resistance. So 23.46, right, is the level of resistance that we have for the month of November. So we'd like to see a close above value, above the range. All right, guys, thanks for watching. So yeah, I mean, the whole thing with these moves is to try to let them play out a little bit and try not to get overexposed and and wait for a little bit of confirmation for the market. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.